and welcome to the live lounge here at Open Banking Expo Canada 2026. So joining me fresh off the stage from a conversation all about the data challenge, Maisie Bilotti, who is Senior Director of Advocacy at MX, Steve Boms, Executive Director at FDATA, and Delina Ivanova, who is the Director of Growth Data Science at Wealthsimple. So welcome to the live lounge, all three of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Steve, can you tell us a little bit about what the focus of your session was and who else joined you on stage?
Yeah, happy to do it, Ellie. So we had a really good conversation about where we are today in the ideation of open banking in Canada, what the future may or may not hold, and what the path of expansion of the open finance framework might be to open data or other types of OpenX in the future. We were joined by some really other expert voices in the ecosystem, including Bhavna and Sam from Borrowell. So it was a really good, comprehensive conversation that I think measured optimism about the future with some pragmatism about kind of where we are and how long it's taken us to get there.
Okay, great. Well, let's find out a bit more about who might have been optimistic and who may be a little bit more pragmatic. Delina, what was one of your kind of key takeaways from the panel?
I think it was a really interesting discussion around really the difficulty of implementing open banking and how it's not necessarily this magical solution, but might take some time. And Steve pointed out some great examples that it might take some time for consumers to adopt as something that is available to them to start creating that competition and that choice for the consumers. We talked about different strategies, and I think one of our main discussion points was really around readiness in different countries and whether the consumers are kind of ready to take that on. I don't know, Maisie, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I was going to say that in the United States, adoption has been much more market-led. It sort of required a little less of a push from regulation, which I think gives me some optimism that once regulation sort of clears the way for this ecosystem to take off, that it will, that consumers will be really excited to start using these tools once the system is set up in place. That hasn't been there before here in Canada for them.
Yeah, and we're definitely a bit, I think, more not pessimistic, but realistic on the Canadian side because I think our, consumer base probably isn't quite as open to open banking yet as they might be in the US.
And to be even more pessimistic, I pointed out on the panel, it's been almost 10 years to get to where we are today. We still don't have the open banking system in Canada today. We're as close as we've ever been, but we haven't actually built anything yet. And so, I'm all for talking about future state of open data and like this ecosystem where you have full ownership as a consumer over your data. But I don't want us to lose focus from building this first phase because we're on the cusp of doing it. And I think that needs to be the priority for right now.
And on that note, I know obviously, Steve, you've been attending the expo here for several years now. How have the conversations changed this year and how has the energy in the room kind of changed, would you say?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ellie. So it's really been, the OB Expo has generally served as like a barometer of where folks' kind of hopes and aspirations for open banking are in Canada. And there were a few years there where the vibes were not good. They're much better this year. I think there is just an overwhelming expectation that this is going to happen. And the question isn't whether, it's how and it's when. We got a little bit more clarity from the Bank of Canada. Not quite as much clarity as I think everybody would have wanted, but some. And I think it's a foregone conclusion now. So it's really more a conversation around execution than it is about ideation, which is what it had been for a very long time.
Yeah, Delina, from your point of view, Wealthsimple have been advocating for consumer-driven banking or open banking, whatever you want to call it, in Canada for many years now. What are you taking away from this, taking back to your team that kind of should give a bit more momentum?
I mean, I think it's a very exciting time and kind of hearing from other people that are here and hearing the optimism, I think it's a great time for us to be here. We're very excited to participate in the ecosystem. We've started with the tools that are available today. We try to participate in the ecosystem as much as possible, but I think the openness of other institutions to also participate enables that for us and for them. And, we're big advocates of competition and how that's going to change the lives of Canadians and giving them more options. So I think I'm feeling very positive. While I'm not sure if the consumers are quite ready for it. I do feel confident that we can educate them, and just even by starting to offer them more choice, it's going to be really transformational for Canada.
Yeah, Maisie, you were talking about that consumer readiness piece that came up on the panel discussion. I think it's a really interesting one because obviously, when you look across countries that have adopted open banking already, it becomes quite a cultural thing, doesn't it, as to how consumers embrace it or how they approach it. And you have that perspective, I guess, from being in the US. How do you see it playing out in Canada?
I think that's an interesting question. I think as soon as that runway is sort of paved through regulation and the rules of the road are set and the APIs are turned on, it may be slow to start, but I really believe that some very interesting companies are either going to start operating businesses, divisions here in Canada from other countries, or native Canadian businesses are going to start providing services. More and more people are going to sign up for them here in Canada, and start getting a real flavor of what competition looks like and what really interesting services they've never even seen before or conceived of, frankly. So I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to drive competition um, to the larger institutions for them to also develop new and innovative tools in-house to better serve their customers. So I think it is going to be kind of a win-win-win across the board. How long that takes, I realize the jury is out, and we will have to see what the Canadian consumer decides. But I remain excited.
And then I guess one final question to each of you. Then we'll start with you, Maisie. What do you want the industry, those who are in attendance here today, to take away from today and to kind of action?
I think the main thing I would want everyone to take away is that while this is sort of an early moment for industry, there are so many cool companies that are already here, ready to start working together, setting up partnerships to really drive this forward. So get involved, continue to meet with people, continue to think about interesting new ways that your business can partner with others to give better solutions for consumers. I think there's great energy here. I learned about a lot of companies I hadn't really heard of as much before. I knew about Wealthsimple. It's like one of my favorites that we don't have in the US right now. But I think it's fantastic just to see all these different companies represented.
I might pull that thread a little bit more, Maisie, to say we've got pretty clear direction of travel from the government at this point, what the system is going to look like. And so what I hope folks leave this conference thinking is they can start building today,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, we don't have all of the details yet, but we generally know what the system is going to look like. And so we can start building the technology, building the infrastructure that will unlock some of those cool use cases and cool companies and consumers' ability to use them, and maybe even expedite the timeline for when that comes to bear. And if you look at other markets, in particular the US, once the market had some clarity on what the regulatory structure was going to look like, that's when the power of the market to kind of deliver it really kind of was unlocked. And so I'm hopeful that we can start to see some of that progress even before the government finalizes all of the regulations required to bring open banking to bear in Canada.
Yeah, and I think as a final thought for me, I hope that people take away that, we shouldn't be afraid of open banking. I know there's a lot of fear around sharing data and how that's going to generate risk for consumers, and it's going to generate risk for some of the existing players that have been in the market for a while. And certainly the risk is there and certainly the fear is there. But I hope that people are actually excited about what outweighs the risk, which is the potential for, again, really cool services and really creating a better customer experience and creating more options for consumers to do more with their money and to have a better financial outlook in life. So I hope that that's what folks take away from the discussion.
Yeah, well, thank you, all three of you, Maisie, Steve, and Delina, for joining us in the live lounge. Great to hear from you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.